Hello, everybody. My name is Suzanne, and I have a New Year's resolution, and that is that I am on a mission to help power down the fear machine. In doing so, I actually want to talk about all of the fear that's going on around the planet right now and what we can do about it. And I have a suggestion of how we can immunize or get immunity against fear. And in order for us to do that, we need to be able to understand, first of all, where the fear is really coming from. So I'm going to suggest that there's actually two kinds of fear that we pick up. One of which we pick up through our instincts. Fear is actually a survival mechanism. So it isn't as though we should really want to rid ourselves of fear, because it is literally there as part of our innate survival mechanism and works in connection with our intuition. So those types of fears we pick up through our, let's say, energetic system, through our mind body system. Fear is an energy. Every emotion, every thought, every feeling is an energy. So fear, much like all the rest of them, is an energy, albeit a low energy. In saying that, it has a very, very important purpose in our life. So it's not the fear that we want to get rid of, but we want to really be able to identify and maybe dismantle some of the anchors that create fears in our life. So that's what I would say is a good kind of fear. Then there's another kind of fear that I'm actually going to call it fake fear. And the reason I'm calling it fake fear is because we don't actually know if it's a real fear or not. So that's the type of fear that we take on through our minds. And the way that happens is that when we see scary movies, for instance, we have a reaction to fear. We'll have like maybe a fright response, and we may react to that, and we may be afraid. We may feel fear. But the fact of the matter is that's not a real fear, because it's not something that's happening to us. It's something that we are witnessing through a movie. And in saying that, we also get a lot of fear from what we see on television, in different shows. Fear is used in marketing, it's used in sales, and it's actually used a lot in the news. I'm sure you've recognized that when the media, when the news readers want you to pay attention to something and very likely take some form of action, which is often that they want you to pay attention to what they're telling you is scary and what they want you to believe is scary and for you to be afraid of, then they use fear for that. So we see fear all the time. We see it through our eyes. We hear it through our ears. We witness other people responding and reacting to that fear. And we may also respond and react in the way we're supposed to think we are supposed to respond and react, as in being scared, or at least acting scared, or doing whatever we are told that we're supposed to do to avoid that fear again. My point being is that again, it's not necessarily a real fear. I mean, seriously, how do we know? If we're witnessing that through the TV, if we're witnessing it through a talk show, if we're witnessing it through the news, how do we know whether or not we're really supposed to be afraid or not, or just act that way? So when I talk about immuning ourselves from fear, what I'm really referring to is being able to identify the real fears from the fake fears. Now, in saying that, when we've been triggered enough times by fake fear, and we become trained to react, to respond in a certain way. So I often talk about how the media has such an influence over the way people behave, right? So they have control over what we see and hear through the media, which that then controls how we feel, and based on how we feel, we often respond. We take an action. We do whatever we're told, or we do whatever we think we are supposed to do based on that fear. But again, I just want to make this thing very, 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 very clear, is that we need to be able to identify which are those real fears and which are not. Because regardless, if we're doing that response thing all the time, that reaction thing all the time, and our body is actually responding in a fear response, then we build what we call anchors. So an anchor is, say for instance, say a nasty dog. Not that there's many nasty dogs, it's probably a bad example, but let's say a dog jumped out at you one time, and you might have been little and you might not have understood, and it might have just wanted to play. But if there was an adult around and they're like, wow, be careful, that dog is dangerous, the chances are you're going to think and that all dogs are dangerous from then on. I mean, this is largely how a lot of children end up with fears and phobias of dogs. So it's like a startle response, and then every time you see a dog, if you're acting nervous, then the dog is going to respond to you being nervous. And now you've got this connection with the dog. You've got an anchor which states that you're supposed to be scared with dogs, and now you've got this interaction with the dog between your energy and the energy of the dog, and then the dog picks up on your nervousness and fear, and it might want to comfort you, and it might want to come up and give you a big hug and lick your face and all that kind of stuff, and you may see that as being scary, and that might actually you might actually mistakenly validate that whole experience as being a real fearful experience. So we've got the real fear, which is very, very important to pay attention to those real fears. So you're paying attention to what's going on in your mind body system, not just what's going on in your head. So here's the key. The key is that you will learn to determine what is real, that you're really picking up, and what is either fake or imagined. Imagined being, like, say, in a movie, you're just seeing something and you're reacting to it, or in the news, you're seeing something and reacting to it. Or what is a real fear? We should always, always, always pay attention to our intuition, to our gut feelings, to our real fears. We should always do that. This is the tricky part. When we've been bombarded with a lot of fears, and we actually start to take that fear on, and we get a lot of validation, and we feel the stresses in our bodies and the reactions in our bodies and in our energy system. That's when it can be tricky to sort of identify, is this a real fear or is it not? So the best way to deal with that is that you think about that thing. Let's say you go and turn the news on, and they start showing you statistics about, whatever's going on in the world today. And statistics are often used to say, oh my God, look at these numbers, they're so high. Oh, everybody must be affected. Personally, I think we've been blinded by science, and we've been blinded by statistics, and it's often statistics that they often use, right? I mean, how do we know what's real or what's not? For instance, I mean, there's been a few times over the years I've tried to go to the bank and get a business loan, and they want you to do a proposal, or you take a course and they want you to do a proposal, and they want you to enter all of these projected numbers into your proposal. And I'm like, but I don't know. I mean, I know I would like to make lots of money, or I'd like to at least have my business survive, but I don't know what they are. And they'll say, well, just put it in, whatever you think, whatever you think. I mean, think about it. Do they not do that with statistics? They call them models, models based on the numbers that they pick out of thin air, whatever works for them to get you to believe whatever they're telling you. My point being is, don't fall for the numbers and don't fall for the statistics, not unless you're willing to go and verify them yourself, okay? Because I've done a lot of that myself over the last few years with everything that's been rolled out with the pandemic event. And when they were putting out these absolutely astronomical numbers, it took me like 3 minutes to do the research to find out just how over exaggerated is an understatement. They have done this on an ongoing basis. Don't forget, the media is in the business of perception management, and they need you to watch their news. They need the ratings. They need lots of people so that they can get the sponsors. If they don't have enough people watching, then the sponsors don't give them money, and then they can't survive. So fear is a weapon. Sorry, not a weapon. Well, yeah, a weapon of choice, to get people to stay tuned, to keep checking back in, to pay attention, to have a reaction, and to also do whatever they're trying to get you to do. So, and I've talked about this in other videos as well. So here we go. How do we get immunity from the fear? Because it just seems like one of these things that's so out there. How can we control fear? Well, first of all, as I was saying, we need to identify what is real and what is not. When it comes to things that you hear from the news or social media or other people are telling you about, just, you can ask them if you want, but definitely ask yourself, when you have these beliefs that you've taken on, how do you know what you think you know, what you've perceived, is true? So that question again is, how do you know what you think you know is true? So that's one way of really trying to find out, hang on a minute, am I being duped here? Like, is there a lot of this fear that's just playing on our nerves to get us to obey, to comply, to take an action that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise do if we weren't in fear? Because when you're in fear, it's very difficult to think straight, and so it can be very confusing, and it can cause you to react in ways that you wouldn't react otherwise. It can even get a lot of people to just turn over all of their responsibility and their rights and just wait to be told what to do next. We see fear used in everything. The next thing that's super, super important, and this is going to take a little bit of practice, and I would suggest that you take this on as a New Year's resolution or a New You evolution for 2022. And that is learning to listen to your heart. Listen to your body, your mind-body system, and really, really pay attention, because you want to know the truth. Okay, the whole thing is you want to know the truth, and you want to know, okay, should I be scared? Should I be afraid? Should I be doing whatever they're telling me? Or should I be paying attention to my gut feeling? And if there is a real conflict between the two, then you need to decide who to trust. Let's face it, humanity's been around for what, millions of years, and we've survived, right? Without the media. Media is relatively new in all of this. And in order to survive, our ancestors had to rely on their gut feelings, on their truth, on being connected to the universe, on being connected to their hearts. Here's the problem. So many people have disconnected from their hearts, and they totally rely on what's going on in their minds. And the truth is, and you can look this up for yourself, you'll see it, the brain doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. I use the example of sitting in a movie, watching a scary movie and feeling scared. That is your brain taking in that information, responding to something that's not even happening around you, and yet you are the one who gets to suffer the consequences. So it's really important to get back into your heart. My mission in 2022 is to help power down this fear machine. It's to help people reconnect with the heart, the wisdom, the courage, and the truth of the heart. Anyways, I'm going to leave you with that for now. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you have a happy new year. It's going to be a happy new year. It's going to be a happy new you. And it's going to be a happy new normal because we are taking this planet back. Humanity is being liberated, and it's time now that we all wake up, get with the program, and let's get this show back on the road. Okay? So, chop chop, let's do it. See you in the next video. Bye bye.